And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's webcast on the NLP Practitioner Certification. My name is Michal Calhoun. I am the NLP trainer with Transform People Academy, and today I'm going to talk to you about the new structure of the training, how it applies to how the world is evolving and changing today, and what you can do to take advantage of this new structure, which I think is going to really excite you and probably give you a much better appreciation for the power of NLP. So to give you a little bit of background of how things evolved over the last 20 years, when I first came across NLP back in 2001, some people were still running a 21-day formal training, which means that you take 21 days off to do the practitioner, you take 21 days off to do the master practitioner, maybe a bit less, maybe 15, and then you did about 17 days for trainer's training and another 4 days for evaluation. So that's not the way it's run today because people are getting really busy. So what we do is we break this up into live training plus pre-study. And traditionally, when I first started, the pre-study was in the form of tapes, audio tapes, and you'd play these 20 tapes, which is about 20 hours of audio, and you'd listen to it multiple times. And then we moved to CDs, then we moved to MP3s, and then we moved online to online cloud. And what would happen then is you'd come to the training room and there would be typically about 7 days of live training. But even nowadays, taking 7 days off is very difficult for people. So we are looking to reinvent how we do NLP training. Now, let me just get this clear. That doesn't mean that we're going to cut out or remove any of the content that would have been taught traditionally. What we're doing is we're actually bringing more of the modules together, but we're covering some of the theory first. And we're doing it in a much easier way than it's done traditionally because we're bringing a lot more of the technology of today in to make it easier for you to learn and adapt and get feedback on how you learn NLP today. Now, what that means is that we've split the NLP Practitioner Certification into 3 different levels. And I'm going to go through these levels today. And the first 2 levels can be done in a very small piece by piece form. So you can do a little bit every week over a period of time. And then what we have is we have a new 4-day live training. And the live training then helps you to really get deep into the installation and the reprogramming of your thinking, your habits and your behaviors and the systems and strategies you need to learn. So by the time you come out after the end of 4 days, you've got a really deep understanding of how all this works and how it works together. So just while we're there, if you are in chat at the moment, just say hello. Let me know where you're coming from. Just say your town or city that's closest to you and say hello. And Mijal will be keeping an eye on chat there for you. So if you have any questions throughout this presentation, Mijal will be able to answer questions in chat. I've got a lot of things on the screen here at the moment, so I might miss the messages. So I'll be sure I want to just focus on the presentation today. Great stuff. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start by bringing up the presentation, and I want to walk you through what I think is different about how we do NLP training today compared to everybody else. It's not just about the structure, but also about how people learn NLP and why some people get incredible, powerful results with NLP, and other people are very skeptical of whether NLP works at all. And then I'm going to show you a different path or a different perspective of how we believe NLP is done differently to most other people. Okay, first question I want to ask is, why are you here? So for some people, the reason you're here is because something has happened in the past. And maybe something's happened in the past that has affected how you see the world, or there's some unresolved stuff in the past that maybe affects your behavior or your thinking or something like that, and you want to improve that. Or it might be something that's going on for you right now in the present, and maybe it's a challenging time, maybe it's stress or anxiety, maybe there's challenges about finances, or maybe it's about helping other people that you feel that you don't have the skills to help those people and make a difference in their life. Or maybe it's because it's something in the future that you want to do. You want to make a difference in your life and the people around you, other people around you. Wherever you are, it's probably fair to say that something needs to change in order to have a better future. So what we're looking at is like, how do we actually find a strategy to get us from where we are today to where we are in the future, where we'll be in the future to get better results in what we're doing. And NLP is that vehicle. The NLP is a vehicle or a strategic framework for helping you go from the past to the future, or the present to the future. a little bit like the diagram there. So what we want to do is we want to first of all understand what is actually NLP first, before going behind the scenes of how we teach it and what's different about what we teach it. What is NLP? Well, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, I'm assuming that if you're interested in attending an NLP Practitioner Certification training, you've probably already done some background research, you know a little bit about it, you've heard some claims about what it can do. And so I'm not going to go too much into the basic fundamentals. I want to go into the more advanced stuff today. What I will say is this, that neuro-linguistic programming comes down to three things. It's about understanding the nervous system. That's the neuro of neuro-linguistic programming. The nervous system means the nervous system and your brain, and how your brain is connected to all your senses. The second part then is the language of the nervous system. So that's the linguistic part, or the language of the nervous system. And what is the language of the nervous system? Well, it's what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you smell, what you taste. It's the VAKOG, as we say. So that's the building blocks of the nervous system. In other words, the language of the nervous system, the leg of the nervous system, is what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and you smell and you taste. It's also how you talk to yourself about that. So neuro-linguistic programming then is really how you program your mind to think differently, to behave differently, and to strategize differently to get different results, or to get better results than you're getting at the moment. So the programming is the recipe book. These are the strategies that helps you to get the results you want, and also to stop getting the results you don't want. That's it in a nutshell. So for me, NLP is not just about neuro-linguistic programming as a set of tools and techniques. For me, it's about understanding the language. For me, it's about understanding an attitude of curiosity, of being really curious about what's going on, both inside your own mind and also in terms of what's going on inside the minds of other people. So what that means is that, let me give you an example. When I was young, we had a family computer, and it cost like several £1,000s. I think about £2,000 when I was quite young, and it was used by everybody. And then one day the computer just stopped working, and like, what do? Nobody knew much about computers. But I was really curious. I said, okay, I wonder, is there something I could see? Like, I don't know how the internals of a computer work. Let me just see if I can understand what's going on. So I got my loyal screwdriver and opened it up, and I had a look inside and a peek inside the computer. And then I noticed that some of the memory sims, the memory chips, it wasn't quite sitting on the slots they're supposed to be on. So maybe it got a bang or something and it just popped out. So I just pushed the memory sim back in, started up the computer, and it worked again. And it was a very simple example of just being curious enough to just look inside and see what's going on, and seeing if I could actually understand what's going on inside this complex system. And it turned out that in this particular case, it was a very simple fix. So that attitude of curiosity is really important. The thing that's really important is curiosity of trying out something just to see what would happen, to experiment, especially in terms of being flexible about how you see things. One of the challenges I see for a lot of people is that we end up following these same routines every day. We get up in the morning, go to work, you take a break at the weekend, and you do certain things that allows you to build a kind of a routine. And sometimes that routine means we don't think about what we're doing. So one of the things about becoming an NLP practitioner is about being really curious and to experiment with different ways of doing things. So in the NLP home study program, you'll come across the law of requisite variety. And what that means is having flexibility on how you behave, flexibility of how you get results, always having more than one pathway to get the results you want. It's a little bit like how the internet works, or the telephone system works. So for example, if I was in Belfast and I want to make a call to somebody in let's say Cork, in the south of Ireland, and the networks working, let's say it was routing through Dublin, and the Dublin was out, there was some sort of a block. Well, what would happen is the network would automatically reroute from, instead of going through Dublin, it would go through Sligo or Galway or Limerick and get to Cork that way. So the network, the telephone network and the internet has multiple pathways of getting to its destination. And that's really important, because if something doesn't work, something is blocked, you always have another route. And this is where the wanton experimentation of NLP comes around. It's about experimenting with different routes of getting the same result. And what that means is that if you have a destination you're going towards and you're not getting towards your destination, well, there always can be different ways of approaching the problem. And this is really important. So that's the second attitude of wanted experimentation. And the third one then is an attitude of acting as if. And I don't mean like pretending. Acting as if in this case is talking about, I want you to consider what the future of you looks like. I want you to consider what would be like if you already had the outcome of becoming the person you want to be. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in this presentation today. Great. Okay, so let's move on. So what is NLP really about? It's about understanding the language of the nervous system. So it's about the visual language. In other words, the pictures and the images you make in your mind. In other words, how you see the world, or what's called your point of view or your perspective. This is really important. It's about auditory, about understanding how you process information, what you hear compared to what other people hear, what the client hears, what your customer hears. It's how you experience the kinesthetic, the K of the kinesthetic is how you feel. That's both tactile feeling, but also emotionally feel. How you feel, how the other person is feeling. When the smells, O stands for olfactory smells and G stands for gustatory, which means taste. It's about understanding those primitives, those particular building blocks, and how they influence how you see the world. Now, we'll talk about this later on, but this is only one part of it. The most important part is the last part there, the AD, auditory digital, which really refers to how you talk to yourself about your experience. So the blue boxes here represent your experience, and the AD, the auditory digital, represents the monkey mind, what you say to yourself about that experience. And this is important because unlike animals and plants and things like that, we have the ability to think about our thoughts. We have the ability to go meta to our experience. We're the only creature that we know of that goes meta to their experience, that we can think about our thoughts and we can make decisions about our thoughts, and therefore we can change our thoughts or we can reprogram our thoughts. So in neurolinguistic programming is about how do we reprogram our thoughts and in order to have a different experience, whether it's a different experience for ourselves to get better results or to give a different experience with our clients or our customers through the process of what we call reframing NLP. Okay, that's really important. Okay, so what are the three major problems? I want to talk about three problems today that NLP is really, really good at solving. And the first problem is understanding time. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the number one problem that people say they have today when they fill out our application forms, when they do a survey, when they inquire, we always ask people, what's your motivation for learning NLP? Why do you want to learn NLP? What is the biggest thing you want to get from us? And the number one problem people have is because they say they don't have enough time. And what I want to do is I want you to think about what that means for you and what it means for your clients. Because here's the thing, every single person has the same amount of time. It's 24 hours in a day. We all have the same amount of time. So it's not about time. It's about how we prioritize what we're doing with that time. And the way we do that is we need to understand the rules of how the world works. So what I want to share with you here is this. I've got a picture like the Houses of Parliament. We've got a building here that represents the House of Parliament. Now, in Northern Ireland, we have the House of Parliament, or we have what's called Stormont. And Stormont is where the politicians are supposed to meet up and discuss the politics and the policies of what needs to be done in the region. But they don't always meet. Sometimes they have a problem, they have fallouts, and they discuss things. And what happens is nothing happens in Stormont because they're not meeting. Okay. Now, if you think about, imagine a scenario where you create rules for how the country is run. And those rules are all set down and they're organized and created and brought into law by the members of Parliament in Stormont or wherever it is. And now imagine that the members of Parliament decided to move to a different location. Okay, so let's say that they decided to move down the road to the Stormont Hotel instead. So all the politicians were in the Stormont Hotel and they're no longer in the Stormont buildings. And everybody who had a problem was sending all their messages in to the Stormont buildings, but all the politicians were in a new location. They wouldn't get the messages that people actually are complaining about. So they wouldn't hear the messages. Now, what I'm saying to you is this is a little bit like what's happening at the moment for a lot of people, is that the way the world works, the rules of the world has changed. And what's happened is the rules have shifted to a new paradigm, a new way of thinking. But what happens is we have learned behaviors and we've learned ways of thinking and ways of strategizing that fits the old model of the world. And sometimes what that means is what used to work for us before no longer works today, because the rules have changed. We've gone over to the blue building rather than the yellow building. Now, what that means is if we don't know the rules of how the world works, we're going to be sending all our requests to the wrong address. And then the people who are supposed to act on those rules are not going to act the way they used to. So, for example, the way that people actually use technology is starting to change. The way that people use AI is influencing a lot of different sectors very, very quickly. One of my passions is technology, and I'm very much involved in software development. And I can tell you for a fact that AI is having a massive impact on how software development is done. So the rules of how technology is used is changing. We've also got new changes coming up around nanotechnology. I heard only the other day that there's a particular company called Neuralink, and they've managed to implant these sensors in someone's brain that actually gives this sensor the ability to recognize how the person is trying to speak. And there's a person who can't speak, is paralyzed, and what he does, he imagines he's trying to say the words, and this sensor in his brain picks up the neurotransmitters, the neural pathways, and predicts what words he's trying to say based on his intent of how he speaks. And what it does then, it turns that into words on the screen. So he thinks the words, and the words come up on a computer screen, and his family can understand them. So that's incredible. Someone who can't speak being able to imagine speaking, and then the words come up on the screen, can communicate with his family. So that's nanotechnology. And then the third area is robotics. And I don't know if you're following what's happening in some of the technology space, but robotics is going to become really, really big in the next couple of years. So you've got robotics, nanotechnology, and AI, three massive areas of technology, which is going to impact everybody's life in the next 3 to 5 years. So what happens is the rules of how the world works is changing. And what NLP allows us to do is work out what rules no longer work and what rules do work, so we can start to learn the new rules of how to work in society, how to get better results, how to understand what doesn't work, what does work, and how we can actually be flexible in terms of our behavior to get the results we actually want. So this is the first problem that NLP is really good at solving, is challenging the assumptions about how you think the world is and figuring out what the new rules are. Okay, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In New York in 1904, this photograph was taken. If you can see it, so maybe I'll put up a full screen if I can. So 1904, this is a picture of New York, Fifth Avenue. And you can see, if you look carefully, you can see most of the vehicles are horse and cart. They're horse and carriage. So the main form of transport in 1904 was horse and carriage. And now when you look at this year, 1904, then in less than 10 years later, 1913, look at the picture on the right. And what do you notice? What do you see is different between the picture on the left and the picture on the right? The picture on the right, all of the vehicles that people are using is the Model T Ford. So in less than 10 years, the form of transport totally changed in New York City. Now, if you look very carefully, I don't know if you can see it here, in 1904, there's actually one car. There's one Model T Ford vehicle just here in yellow. Okay, the rest are all horse and caddy. My point is that anybody who's around in 1905, 6, 7 probably would say, oh, these new iron horses, these new motor vehicles, oh, they'll never replace the horse. We've had horses for thousands of years, and we're going to continue to have horses for thousands of years more. And they're right, we still have horses today, but horses today are used for sports, for horse racing. However, we've got different forms of transport today. So a lot of people got caught in believing that this new technology was not going to impact their lives. Imagine all the people that are making horseshoes and leather equipment, horse saddles and grain and drains and clearing up streets and all stuff like that, that their job depended on the horses in terms of the transport, how their lives got totally changed as a result of a 10-year evolution of technology. And it was really, for that time, that was a massive change. So in 10 years, we went from horse and carriage Model T Ford. And I hope I'm trying to emphasize how important this is to understand, because what we're doing today, what's happening today with nanotechnology and artificial intelligence and robotics is at least 10 times of a bigger change, maybe even 100 times of a bigger change that we're going through today. And most people still aren't even aware. I think less than 1% of the world are aware of the impact of AI and robotics and nanotechnology today. So there's a huge change coming. And this is influencing all sorts of different things like geopolitics and different regional conflicts. It's affecting the economy. It's affecting the price of oil, all sorts of things like this, even the price of electricity, things like that. So all of this means we're going through massive change. And if you want a really good tool for change, for dealing with change and learning the new rules of society, NLP is what I found to be the best way of actually being able to navigate change. Okay. So let's continue on. So what that means is that we need to look at not just time and how time is important and what we do with our time and how we make better use of our time, but also identity. Let me talk to you about identity for a moment and how NLP affects this. What I mean by identity is that, let's say you're on a journey to go from A to B. So you start here on A, on the left-hand side of the journey. You want to cross a bridge and you want to get over to the far side of the bridge, which is your destination, where you want to be. Now, the same is true in terms of your goals in life. When you think about your goals in life, you say, well, where am I right now and where do I want to be? Okay? So where I am right now, presently today, this is my life as I see it today. Where I want to be is my destination, it's my goal, it's my mission, it's my vision, it's how I want to see the future. And there's only two things that you need in order to get from where you are right now to where you want to be. The first thing is you need to figure out what you don't want. Maybe it's limiting beliefs. Maybe it's feeling stuck. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's maybe it's something that is holding you back, stress, something like that. Maybe you're not fit enough. Maybe you're not flexible enough. So something you don't want, there's something that stops you. Let's take stress as the obvious one. You're stressed, you've got anxiety. So it's something you don't want. And then the other thing is, what's something lacking that you want? Maybe some resources, some skill. Maybe you need more confidence. Maybe you need more flexibility. That's something lacking that you want. So all we really need to do is figure out where we are right now, where we want to be, and then we need to figure out how we remove the obstacles and we give ourselves better resources to get what we want. And that's essentially what we want to do. The problem is this: most people don't think like this. What they do is they complain about all the things they don't want, and they don't think about the things they do want. And here's a very good little tip for you. Sometimes people, if you ask people, what do you want in life? What do you actually want? Are you clear about the future? A lot of people will say no. They'll tell you about all the things they don't want. So here's a little tip for you. Write down all the things you don't want in life. If you're not sure what to do, write down all the things you don't want and then look at that complete set of things you don't want. Say, what's the opposite? Because if these are the things you don't want, the opposite must be what you want. Okay. Now, the problem is this: if you think about what you want in life, what happens is people tend to pick up on all the reasons, all the excuses, all the problems of how they can't get what they want. And what that does, it means that instead of actually living the life that we actually want, we end up living the life that we have today. So what I mean by identity is that when you're looking at the future, when you're looking at what you want to create in the future, are you actually settling on what you have today, or are you actually trying to aspire to what you actually want to get in the future? Third part I want to talk about, the third problem that NLP is really important to understand, is how we make decisions. Now, what I want to know is, when you think about getting results, do you ever think about what prevents success? This is a big part of understanding NLP. What prevents success is this. What happens is you are set on a journey. Maybe you're going to fly somewhere to your destination. Your destination is the goal you want. And you've got goals, you've got dreams, and you've got hopes, and you've got aspirations. And the reality is that all of those goals, dreams, hopes, and aspirations require you to land to get that goal. And the problem is, when the plane comes into land, it doesn't always come into land, because if there's obstacles in the way, the plane might have to go into some sort of a stacking ring. I don't know if you've ever noticed this in Heathrow. Sometimes the plane will fly around while it's waiting for space in the landing space before it's allowing the airport to land. So these stacking rings, maybe they'll stack at like 10,000 feet, and then they'll be told by the control tower, they can drop down to, let's say, 8,000 feet, and then down to 4,000 feet, then down to 2,000 feet, and then they'll actually come into land and they'll actually get the goal they want. Now, what these stacker rings are, these are the things that stop you getting the results you want. The first reason that people don't get the results they want is because they delay. They say, not yet. They say, but first I have to do this. I'm not ready yet. I have to do all of the things first of all. And that stops success. The second is say, so, okay, maybe they're in denial. Maybe they think, I still think the old way of the world working is the way it's supposed to be. If I just work harder, or work longer, I push more, I'll get the results that I want. But the reality is there's a denial that something has to change. Okay. Maybe it's because they're distracted. I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fit, I'm too lazy, whatever it is. There's some sort of belief that they say, so they distract themselves saying, no, I'm not going to do the thing I want to do. I'm going to buy into my excuses of I'm too, whatever the problem is. And the fourth one is they literally believe they're not good enough to do that. They don't have belief in themselves to get the result they want. And all of these things, these four words, delay, deny, distract, and doubt, these are all examples of what we call personal obstacles around identity. So this is why identity is really important in NLP, is because most people, the reason most people don't get what they want, they don't get the results they want, they don't know what they want, is because of these four words. They delay, they deny, they distract, and they have doubts. And all of these phrases in blue, but first I have to do this, oh, this is not for me, or I'm too this, or I can't. These are called limiting beliefs or limiting decisions. And these limiting decisions are what we call obstacles. And what we learned how to do in NLP is we learn to remove the obstacles and take them away. If we can learn how to remove those obstacles and take them away, then what we get is we get flow. We get a flow experience, which means it's easier to actually reach our destination. Okay. So that means that we want to be able to understand identity as well. So based on that, then let's talk about how you can actually learn NLP to get rid of ththese obstacles and get the resources that you actually want. So how best to learn NLP? Well, let's start with the basics. One of the things that a really valuable place to start is to understand the new system we're putting in place for learning NLP. It starts with level 1. Then we got level 2 and level 3. What we've done is we're going to simplify how you start the journey. Because of what we just said about, because people have identity conflicts, because people create doubts and they delay starting, what we want to do is we might want to make it very easy for you to start learning NLP at a very, very deep level. So what we've done, we've brought a new program that brings these 3 levels together. The first level is about the foundations to NLP. What does that mean? What I found is a lot of people think that NLP is some sort of magic, instant cure, quick fix, amazing sort of like way of getting instant success or instant relief. And you can get some really powerful change work done very, very quickly using techniques in NLP. However, what that does is it gets people to start buying into the idea that NLP is some sort of a miracle worker. And the truth is that there's 2 types of people in the world. There's people who have got a very flexible way of seeing the world. They are very flexible how they learn and adapt to change. We call this neuroplasticity. Their nervous system is very flexible how they adapt to what's going on around them. And that means they're able to learn and adapt to whatever happens really easily. And the problem with that is that if you learn to adapt very easily, what happens is you can become quite suggestible to believing that something can be an amazing result. It means that you can get results very quickly if you have high levels of neuroplasticity, because you can literally change your beliefs and change your values and change how you see the world very easily. And there's some people who come across NLP and they come across NLP for the first time and they learn some of these quick fix, these quick interventions, and they get amazing results with it and say, oh my God, NLP is amazing, it's cool. And then they show it to somebody else who doesn't have the same level of flexibility and they don't have the same experience. So, and when I first came across NLP, I was one of those people. I was a very skeptical person about NLP. I really wasn't sure. I didn't know a lot about it. I was introduced to by somebody else who said, you just need to learn NLP. So I took him at his word, but I wasn't really sure if it actually worked. So I wasn't flexible in that way. I had quite a fixed mindset. But my background is physics. I got a first class honours in physics, and I was applied physicist, worked in astronomy. I worked with teams from NASA and Rutherford Appleton in Oxfordshire. And I've worked with some of the best scientists in the world. I met Stephen Hawking twice, once in Dublin and once in Galway in our university. And what I realised is that when you come from a background in physics, you tend to lean on evidence-based procedures. You look at measurements, you look at results, you look at facts, you look at gathering good information before you make a decision. So when I came across NLP, I didn't buy into all these quick fixes. I wanted to experience for myself. So I did the training, and what I found is my own experience of how I saw the world shifted radically over 4 days. And that gave me my own bias of saying, well, maybe being fixed mindset is something I need to be more flexible about. So what happened is I decided to learn NLP at a very deep level. I studied everything I could. I really, really put in the hours and the work to learn about NLP. And I got a really good, solid foundation in NLP. Now, that solid foundation in NLP made a massive difference to me, because at the time, I was earning about 20,000 euro a year. And within a couple of years, I was making over 100 grand a year working for the London Stock Exchange. And I was doing the exact same job I'd done before. One was basically academia and small business. And then I went working for some of the biggest financial institutes in the world. And the only difference was my thinking, was my mindset. So what I realized is that having a very fixed mindset limited me about what I could do in my life. But when I actually became more flexible about how I saw the world, it totally changed how I saw NLP, and it totally changed how I saw my life. So let's clarify again. So some people have got very high levels of neuroplasticity. They're very easy to change how they see the world. They get amazing results very quickly. But other people like me are very skeptical of some of these techniques, and they need evidence-based. So it took me a while to really understand how this stuff works. And then I learned at a very deep level, and I got amazing results. And I got such amazing results, I decided I need to make this a big part of my life. And I learned how to become a trainer. I've trained hundreds of people, probably thousands of people at this stage, around NLP because of the power of NLP. But what I didn't get back 20 years ago was there's such a radical different way of seeing NLP. Some people can go to quick change very quickly, and other people, they really need evidence-based before they make the change. And NLP is an evidence-based system. So what that means is that when you're learning NLP, you need to be aware of both types of people who've got a fixed mindset and people who've got a flexible mindset. Because if you've got a very flexible mindset, you might be convinced very easily that NLP can change anybody. But if you talk to somebody who's got a fixed mindset, you won't get the evidence that it's changed for them. And that brings in doubts. Remember, we talked about the doubts before. So what you need to do is you need to understand both types of mindset, people who've got flexible mindset and fixed mindset, and be able to use the same techniques for both types of people. And that's how you create a really solid foundation in NLP. So in order to do that, what we've done is we've stripped out the core of the foundation stones to NLP, and we call it the foundations to NLP. Literally, it is a separate program. It's an online program. It's a self-assessment program. It's a self-guided program called the NLP Foundations, and it's a fantastic way to learn the fundamentals of NLP. Now, some people, they don't want to learn the fundamentals. They want to do the cool stuff. That's fine, but what I find is when you actually go to use NLP in the world, if you don't know the fundamentals, you won't get results, because not everybody has got a higher neuroplasticity. So you need to be able to understand that. Okay. So once you understand the theory, the foundations of NLP, the next level then is you need to get direct feedback on your personal situation, because NLP is not about self-help. Let me say that again. NLP is not a self-help system. Let me just talk about this for a moment. A lot of people think that NLP is about self-help. It's a system that you can help yourself. You read a book, you do a course, and it can change your life. And the reality is that that's not the way it works. Why? Because the eye cannot see itself. You cannot see the unknown unknowns in your own life. In order for you to get the biggest bang for your buck, in order to get the biggest change in your life, you need feedback from somebody who's not you, right? Which means you need direct feedback on your personal situation to get deep, meaningful change in your life. And that's where level 2 comes in. Level 2 comes in is about understanding how to get deep, meaningful feedback on your personal situation. So what we've done in level 2 is we're bringing in weekly classes. We call them the community classes called Mindset Mastery, where you can learn to bring your challenges that you recognize from level 1 into a community group, present those obstacles to the group, take the stage and serve that obstacle up and help to find a new perspective that you've never thought about before. It could be one of the other students who works with you, or it could be me, it could be Majella or one of the coaching team. And the idea is to be able to take the challenge that you have, reframe those challenges with live feedback every week as you learn to deepen your understanding of NLP. This is really important. So the Mindset Mastery meets every week for about an hour and a half every week. And we answer questions on the theory, level 1, but we also allow you to bring those challenges into the group so we can do some quick changes or guide you towards what principles you need to understand to make those changes yourself. Really powerful. We've been doing this for over a year now, and some of the changes have been phenomenal, and other ones, they happen more slowly over time. And then what we do is we want to introduce the third level, which is the NLP Practitioner Certification training, which is now 4 days live, not 7. Why? Because over level 1 and level 2, you've already committed the time and you've got the feedback, so you really understand the foundations. My belief is that people who do our practitioner certification training will be at the level of master practitioners, and our master practitioners will be level of trainers. So bringing this new model about breaking NLP into 3 levels make it easier to access NLP, easier to learn NLP, get better feedback on how you're learning it, and therefore when you come to the live training, you're already at a very, very high standard compared to most people in the world. And that is the difference that makes the difference, in my opinion, about NLP. Okay, great. So let me talk a little bit about the NLP Foundations. The NLP Foundations consists of 5 modules about mindset, motivation, messaging, modeling, and mastery. Okay, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly because I'm going to show you a very quick demo, and then you can understand it for yourself. Mindset is about understanding the foundations to communication. It's about what are the core beliefs you need to have to get great results in life. What are the presuppositions? What are the pillars you need to know about? So that's the first module, the foundations of communications, because you need to start from a good basis. You need good principles to start from. Once you have those principles, then you need to understand motivation. And we have a module called leveraging the limbic system. That's how to take advantage of the emotional and visual core part of the brain, the limbic system, and how to take advantage of those to create change within yourself and others. The next part then is about understanding language. It's all about messaging. The message you give yourself, that's your self-talk, and then the communication with other people as well. So we have a module called leveraging the language system. And this is the real powerful work of your linguistic programming. The language section is the most important part. Even if you just did the leveraging language section, it would make a massive difference to your career and your job, whether you're a leader or a coach or a manager or a therapist or whatever you're doing, it would make a huge difference, that messaging. The next part then is about tools for transformation. It's about how you model success, how you model excellence, but also how you model how people don't get excellence so you can change those strategies. So that's called tools for transformation. And the last one then is like the long tail. It's everything else you learn, whether it's in sales or presenting or coaching, or whether it's in leadership or whatever area you want to look at. It's the whole trail of techniques that are left behind by other people who've mastered NLP and created models of excellence. So I've got a whole selection of different modules over there. I'm going to share them with you very briefly now. So this is the NLP Foundations program. So this is what you get. If you get access to the NLP Foundations program, what you get is you get the 5 modules. You get the foundations, communication, leveraging the limbic system, leveraging language, and tools for transformation, trail of techniques. And you get a full list of over 40 hours of live content of me training. It's the best training courses I've done over the last 9 years ago, whether it's the history of NLP, the pillars of transformation. If you're familiar with me before, you know I've written the book called The Pillars of Transformation, and you can go through each of these different modules, learn each of these different modules about presuppositions, all of the foundations of communication. You can learn about the limbic system, you can learn about leveraging language, the tools for transformation, all of these different things here. And you just walk through it in your own pace. We're adding more components to it as well, so that when you actually complete each section, you actually get a little tick box to say you've completed these. Most of these are about an hour long. You can see most of them are about an hour. Some are shorter because they're more distinct. and each of them are masterclasses. The first 3 modules is what you need to do to become an NLP practitioner. The last 2 are more the long tail of things like tools of transformation, the techniques. So all of this together forms the basics of the NLP Foundations program, and it's a really powerful program. Let me just make that a little bit bigger there so you can see it a bit clearer. So you've got foundations of communication, leveraging the limbic system, leveraging language, tools for transformation, and the trail of techniques. And you just work through them as you complete each one. It tells you how many lessons you've completed. It puts a green mark on it, and then you can continue on and then watch the next one. All of these are the best. All of these are the best training courses that I've done. They're the selection of the best videos, the best lessons, and the best courses that I've done over the last 9 years or so. So it's the best quality content I actually have. And this is a totally new platform that we're literally just launched today. We're bringing in another section in the next couple of weeks, which will have content and PDFs and the transcripts for these. If you actually prefer reading than watching video, you'll always have access to those as well. So we're just bringing this is a brand new system that we're introducing today. So that's the NLP Foundation program. So let me go back to the screen here and back to the live training. Okay, so that's that screen there. So that is the NLP Foundations. That's level 1. Now, when you go through level 1, you can do it in your own time, or you can join level 2 straight away and join the demo I just did. You go straight through level 2, and we can go into Mindset Mastery. So Mindset Mastery is a weekly class. Basically, we meet every Thursday at 7 o'clock until 8:30. It's very informal. We've got a Q&A there, and we can answer questions you have, any challenges you have about the course content or things you're not clear about, or anything to do with NLP. You can bring into the group, and we can answer your questions. And that prepares you to get the feedback on what you are learning, and to make sure you're not learning in isolation, that you have a chance to apply the changes to your own situation. And finally, then, what you have is the NLP Practitioner Certification training live. These are some people who've done our training before. This is Callum. Callum came to us, and he was making about £300 a month at the time, and he really struggled to be able to afford the money to do the training, and it's totally changed his life. He went from earning £300 a month working your burger joint to earning high 5 to 6 figures as a social media guru. Basically, what he does, he's a video production, and he creates content for other famous people like Tony Robbins' son and the Wolf of Wall Street and lots of people, because he just raised his standards. And what he said to me after doing the training is, "Hi, I've been looking back on the progress I've made over the last few months since the training, so I thought I'd give you an update. As you know, I used to have crippling social anxiety, and now that I've upgraded my mindset, I feel like a new person." And he's a totally different person. You should have seen him. Before the training, he used to work in a burger place in Belfast, which I hated. And now, just a few months after, I'm reaching out to millionaire influencers on social media and signing them as my clients. I spent thousands of pounds on training with different coaches, but nothing compares to the investment I've made with you. Upgrading my mindset is what's made all the difference. There's Vidette. She had limited beliefs about money, totally changed her life. She ended up making an extra 100,000 a year, and she got a boss. Her boss gave her a Mercedes as well, and that turned out to be one limiting belief she had about money. Ryan said, "It's the most transformational week of my life." I could go on like this for ages. Venti said, "This has been hands down the best training I've ever done. The level of care you will receive and the quality and depth of knowledge are detailed to none." You can stop these and play them back if you want. So what do you get for the 4 day? You get 4 intensive days of training. You get world-class feedback from me. You get lots of group exercises. In fact, all we do is group exercises for the whole 4 days, because the theory is covered. That's why I need you to have a solid foundation first. That's why I need you to come to the Mindset Mastery, so you've got practice about the theory before we actually do the live sessions, because you need to have a certain standard before we actually do the live exercises. You get personal feedback both on Mindset Mastery, but we'll do deep exercises, change work in the 4 days live, and you get your NLP certification as well. Right, that was quite a lot of information there. So it's 4 days live, and what you get is these are some of the quotes from this particular class. I put them all together on one screen. One of the people described as life-changing, transformational, amazing experience, a package of tools and models to make powerful change. I left feeling a massive sense of achievement. I felt that Michal has already had this training. I felt that Michal already has this training in a nutshell, every aspect covered. And we've improved it since then because we've broken out some of those components. Somebody else in the class said, I had none real experience and discovered many things about myself I never knew about. This training has been the single most amazing decision I made in my life. I've mastered learning and skills that I never dreamed were possible. This training's like nothing I've ever experienced before. It's like lighting up a Christmas tree in your whole life. One of the metaphors we talk about is the Christmas tree. So that's just a reference to one of the stories we talk about in the training. Karen Ritchie said it's the best decision you could ever made. Loving how changing has changed my life. Janet Quigley, she's an amazing therapist. Before she actually was a therapist, she was a cleaner, and she came to us. She invested her money, found it very difficult to get the money together. She did the training, and now she works with people all over Northern Ireland. She's a wonderful lady and a fantastic testament to how somebody can totally change their life and change their career as a result of learning NLP. Menike said it was one of the best trainings she had done. Fantastic training there. Martina said it is one of the best trainings she's ever done. The video's on YouTube if you want to watch it. Christina said it was an amazing week. She said she'd spent thousands of pounds and she got more results in a couple of days from us than she got from like months with other trainings. If you are interested in doing our NLP practitioner, you want to get all of it together, level 1, 2 and 3 together, take a screenshot of this. And Miguel, if you could drop this in chat, it would be really useful to do that. Take a screenshot of that, and that'll give you the application form, and we'll book you in a call. We'll talk you through the program, make sure that you're the right fit for the program is the right fit for you, that your budget is right, your finances are in order, and all that sort of stuff. And we'll make sure you get access to level 1, 2 and 3 together. And that's really it. So if you found this useful, reach out to us. You can book in a call and talk to us about the specifics if you want to get more details. Or you can actually just start with level 1 and do the NLP Foundation program, or you can do level 1 and 2, or you can just do it all together and you get a better price if you do it all together. So that's everything, guys. So I appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, you can drop the chat. Majella will be on chat for the next while, or you can fill out the application form, drop your questions in there, and we'll come back to you in the next couple of days and get talking to you about taking your next step into changing your life and making the most of your future with NLP. So I hope you found it useful. Speak to you all soon, guys.